Hello,
Hi.
and welcome to another edition of Story World Explorers, where we're exploring the story world of B.E.A.R.S the Awakening.
So B.E.A.R.S the Awakening is developed by Davence Young, who you may remember from A Story World in 8 Days. He was on the winning team of the Cosmic Cookbook of Lucius Crane. And this world is about, it's not too distant into the future, a very cyberpunk-ish world where there are many parties trying to develop the ultimate soldier. So we got to think about talk about the lore and the building of those ultimate soldiers, and really focused in on one piece, the book, the first Hyguardian, which will be the first iteration into the story world.
And the story of the first Hyguardian is about like the development of the super soldier program, the experiments that went on, the technology that was needed to develop these elite team of super soldiers known as the B.E.A.R.S, which is an acronym for
Bioengineered Alien Response Soldiers.
Exactly.
So it's a great conversation. If you didn't know or already know, Da Vinci is a fantastic illustrator, and so when we gave suggestions about how to start building the audience now, he has a lot of projects in the far future. So how we can get people involved right now very much stem from his illustration. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you will be able to see those illustrations. And if you're listening, it's a good idea to go and check it out because it's very, very cool. Anchor's up.
Anchor's up, and away we go.
So, welcome back to another edition of Story World Explorers. Today we have Davence Young, who was one of our participants in the Story World in 8 Days. You'll recognize his voice, you'll recognize his face if you watched.
And he was on a gold award.
Oh,
winner.
yeah, that's right.
Gold
he was on the winner
team. He was on
the Cosmic Cookbook of Lucius Crane.
Yeah.
So fantastic to have you on, and it's great. One of the not the secret reasons why we did the competition, but it's always to meet more people and to find out new story worlds. And now we have one with Davence Young and B.E.A.R.S the Awakening. So we usually start off. Davence, give us a little scoop into this story world. What are we dealing with?
Oh man, well, the story world itself incorporates cyber technology, nanotechnology, mysticism, lots of good action, playing around with bloodlines, lineage, myths, and legends, all coming together in a true sci-fi, egg, I would say.
Yeah, so we're well into the future here, where B.E.A.R.S takes up in 2120. I've said 2020 on the podcast, and I was like, it's all about COVID. But no, 2120 AD, where there's just, common problems that we're experiencing now, where the military is at the forefront of a lot of scientific discovery, and they're trying to create the super soldiers. And that's really where the story world is kind of starting off is this like arms race. So who are the interested parties?
Yeah, what are the main factions? Who are we following? What's the tension and the conflict of this B.E.A.R.S universe?
All right. Well, basically there are 4 factions. We have Shadow Corps, which are the good guys. They're the American military. We have Omnigenics, which is a ruthless corporation, all about profit. Then we have Crucibles, which are a terrorist faction, which cause a lot of instability throughout the world. Then the final one is a mysterious cult. And they are a mystery. But they do have, they kind of come into being as a result of certain things the hero O'Shea does, not knowing that he's spurring this group to rise up, and be another threat in the world.
Yeah, and we'll talk about O'Shea in a little bit with the entry point of the book coming out relatively soon in the editing room right now. But so we have these different factions, right? And they're all trying to go after what is the ultimate soldier, right? And this is a story is the end of time. Actually, Neil deGrasse Tyson, I love what he says about like why we're going to go to Mars. Yeah. And he's like, there's no reason, there's no financial reason, there's no military reason. And those are the 2 primary reasons why humans do anything. It's for military or or to make money or military prowess. So they're trying to figure out how to make this ultimate warrior. and then there's a bit of a breakthrough. So what was well, you mentioned that Shadow Corps is a part of the U.S. government, and it's the purpose of finding and developing this ultimate soldier. What was the breakthrough, and then who are the Bears outside of a Chicago football team that we love and adore?
Well, the BEARS is an acronym for biomechanical exfiltration and recon soldiers, and they are the pinnacle of this program. Um, the secret power to them is a chip that has been implanted in all of their brains, and this chip gives them superhuman abilities. Imagine Wushu meets mm, Iron Man in a way,
Mm-hmm.
where they are a lot stronger, a lot faster, way more agile. They have unique abilities. Each team member is something different, and their
Mm-hmm.
abilities actually affect their station in the team.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
which I love. The team is also very ethnically based, which
Right.
is something that's definitely time. Its time has come, basically.
Sure.
Um, let's see. If you want, we can go into Shadow Core a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Shadow Core is the covert intelligence and weapons division that operates beneath military command.
Okay.
Publicly, they don't exist. So it's like if you
So,
didn't see
so
us.
that's why they're called Shadow Core.
Right. Right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Privately, it functions as a black budget think tank and enforcement arm. They're tasked with identifying, exploiting, and controlling cutting edge technologies and emerging non human threats. They believe, order must be preserved at any cost.
Mm.
Sometimes you gotta sacrifice a little bit of ethics in that process, but as long as people are generally safe, just the population of Earth is still moving smoothly and orderly, they've done their job. That's how you look at it.
Okay.
And part of the rising threat of the super soldier programs throughout, these different factions, it's spurring them on to get that one up. Because it's always about who has the bigger missile, who has the bigger nuke.
Right.
It's the same thing in this case, and they were successful with the Bears. And the Bears get used to go behind enemy lines and, take care of business, whether it be wet work, whether it be snatching somebody up, that is their purpose.
Right. Yeah, and there's a lot of threats within this world, and some of which we'll kind of dive into that goes way back into the past. But you mentioned the terrorist organization, the Crucible, and the profiteering military complex of these organizations that are trying to again just kind of swing their weight around and be in control of the next thing. Because as we know, what we saw in the Cold War, well, not I don't. I hope none of us were watching or hiding underneath our desks in the 1960s. But where having more nukes and nukes positioned, right? Whereas what ended up being like, all right, well now we have
Yeah.
Cuba now. Oh well, we're in Turkey, right? And so then you have all these positions. It's kind of what's happening here with these augmented soldiers, where it's like when I hear about the Crucible too as a terrorist organization, my mind immediately goes to Metal Gear Solid, where you have Mother Base, and that's how I'm kind of picturing these guys. Who are like, no, well, we're gonna go to the highest bidder, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna be the best, and be able to whatever kind of force their will on things.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Um, and the founder of the Crucibles, his mindset was through power and strife, civilization can advance.
Okay.
But only when weakness is stripped away.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of the core of the whole entire organization. They still want power, all of this stuff, but they want to separate the wheat from the chaff. and only
Mhm.
have a strong race, period.
Sure.
So those who emerge, you know, prove that they were always meant to evolve.
Mm,
Those who perish were never viable to begin with. That's kind of
sure.
their mindset. Either
Yeah.
you're part of the team or you can't afford it.
Right. So yeah, so we've talked about the successful Dr. Townsend is the one that develops this chip with this crystal, but the crystal is of mysterious origin, right? And it sounds a lot like with God, there's some mechanism that's ringing with me where it's like you don't know what your power is going to be until well, it's a little bit like the boys in Gen in like
Right.
the Compound V, where
Compound
it's like
V.
you don't know what you're going to get until you put it in. It could just explode your mind,
Yeah.
or give you something totally useless like a tail, or it could be amazing and you can have
Yeah,
like
right.
all these superhuman strength and stuff.
Hmm.
So it sounds very like the concept of the crystal is in that way where it almost chooses the strongest quality or
Yeah.
something of that person and heightens that. And so we have these six members of this team, as you said, are all of very differing racial backgrounds, and that was a huge focal point for you to kind of see as we were talking in a lot of our conversations that in the mainstream media, if you think about the Jack Ryans and the other kind of complex where you have the military team, it's almost always led by a white male and surrounded by other white men. And this team is
With a
not that way.
minority mixed in.
With one minority miss that's going to take the first bullet. Um, so who's on this team who successfully when the Bears was a trial too, right? Of like who
Yeah.
survived and actually made it onto this
Yeah.
team.
Yes, yes. The Bears themselves are surviving people from this series of hellacious trials, similar to Navy SEALs,
Yeah,
what
right.
they go through to be a Navy SEAL. Okay.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'd rather have a bear on my side than a seal.
But with the six members, we have Titan, who is the team lead, or if she becomes the team lead, or she's African American. You have Eclipse, her second in command. He's African American. You have Quantum, who is Latin. You have Zen, who is also African American. You have Tsunami, who is Filipino, and then you
Mm,
have Sublime, who is Polynesian.
yeah,
Uh, so to me, it was very, very important because I'm ex-military, ex-Air Force.
yeah,
And when you go into the military, it's a tossed salad. You see a little bit of everything
right,
in there. It's not just all of one race. And I wanted to make
right.
sure that, in Bears, that is reflected, because you don't see that. If you're lucky, you'll see a dash of color
Hmm.
Right.
amongst that team. So I wanted to kind of just flip it.
Right. Well, not even just flip it, just show what the
Yeah.
actuality is, right?
Yeah.
Especially in 2120,
Well,
right? You're
right.
going to
And then,
expect it to.
it's also a sci-fi where you're going to be, you don't want there to be more alien races than Earth races
Right. Represented.
represented.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah.
Well, that was what
And
we were
then,
talking about too, about like so
right.
Star Trek or something
Yeah.
like that, where
Yeah.
yeah, like you had more
Yeah.
different type of races that were coming from different planets. By the way, and a little tidbit, our father loved Star Trek, but how Nazism is just widespread throughout the universe. Like it is just one of those things
Yeah.
that's a little
Well,
tidbit.
Well, they weren't in favor of the Nazism. It was an
No.
evil thing.
No, it was always an
Yeah,
evil.
it
No,
was-
yeah, of course, but it was weird that they had the same symbolage and stuff. Like it
Well,
was.
maybe
Yeah.
it was one of those collective unconsciousness that's like
Yeah,
that's
like
just pure evil.
the swastika that
Is pure
represents
evil.
love
Well,
and
peace,
friendship
yeah,
in
right.
some cultures. Anyways, that was a little bit of a diverge down a dirt road. Anyways, so very important and absolutely love that about the world itself to show that representation. And I think that's what gives it a lot of viability along with the story. So now we have this crystal of unknown origin, right? And this is where the story world really kind of opens up a little bit because we have it's not just what leading up to now, right, has been pretty consistent with the history that we know. But there's also a piece, and you're diving into folkloric tales of Atlanteans here, where there's a struggle between two other races, one of which is not from Earth that goes back 120,000 years. And so now we have to talk about the Hyguard and the Draoons,
Right.
and what's the conflict and what's going on there. So just really briefly, right? We can't
This is
spoil all the
This is
things,
kind of like setting the table for the Bears.
right?
Well, the High Guard hail from a race called Attilans. And to not spoil things, there's a serious rift between the Draoons and the Attilans, to
Right.
the point where the Draoons want to expunge their existence from the universe. They find out that the High Guard come to Earth for a purpose.
Hmm.
Not too sure what it is, but because they are blood enemies, they need to figure out what's going on.
Sure.
So they send one of their people to scout.
Hmm.
And this person, he has multiple hats, we put it to you that way.
Yeah.
So he actually is kind of perfect for this particular type of a mission. Um, and he has a lot to do with what happens in our myths and legends
Sure. Right.
Okay.
on Earth.
About the
A lot of,
Atlanteans and stuff. And stuff.
hmm a
Right.
lot of things that go bump in the dark, he had a hand in creating.
Hmm.
Um, the High Guard pretty much pulled mankind out of the caves. They
Right.
were the missing link. So they're the ones who brought culture, civilization, technology, language to mankind, which also kind of perplexes the drones. It's like, why are they doing all this? Is
Hmm.
there something else to this? And there is, which is why correct, the one that's been sent to us, kind of spy, has still been orbiting around the planet, gathering data, gathering information, just trying to figure out what is really going on with these people.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and he's been studying for a long time too.
Yeah.
Um,
But and forgive me, but doesn't this kind of almost, I don't want we don't want to spoil anything, right? But isn't this kind of what, can we get into the crypto archaeology side of this?
well, we're going to talk about the book in just a second.
Okay,
But
because
yeah.
I was thinking, because I'm like, there could be a way where we could just talk about, like, this is some of the things that happen in the book that he's going to discover through this science that
Yeah.
you've developed for
So
the series.
yeah, so Jack's talking about a character, a Shay, who we're going to talk about in just a second. But just kind of wrapping up or putting a bow on what's going on in this world right now, right? So it's got all of this ancient history and stuff. And if you haven't been able to put piece to piece together, the crystal has a lot to do with what this struggle between the drones and the High Guard and what actually happened in the past that's coming now to the forefront because of the Bears,
Mhm.
the discovery by Dr. Townsend to create these augmented soldiers, the super soldiers. And so, yeah, it's probably, we could probably just kind of go right into the book itself, the book that you wrote. Well, we're thankful to be able to read the first chapter and kind of talk about, and kind of get our hands on what the setting and what the idea is. And so we have this main character, Ashay, who's a crypto archaeologist. There's a lot of stuff that we really want to kind of dive
Yeah,
into the
right.
book here, and this will be the first entry point for you, the listener, to kind of dive in as Da Vinci is going through the final editing stages here. So this will be available sooner rather than later for you to kind of dive into and read yourselves. So we know how the book ends, but we're not going to tell you.
Yeah.
So we have a Shay who's a crypto archaeologist, right? So this is back in the 2100, or is that
Yeah.
22nd century? 22nd century, right? Yeah,
We're in
22nd
the
century.
21st century.
This is in the 22nd century. It's prior to the Bears being created as a team.
But it's almost kind of, it sets the table for how
Right.
the Bears get created. But I just want, so just because it seems like we're talking a lot, and I just want to get I want you to explain crypto archaeology as you see it, so that we're all on the same level.
Yeah, right. And which would be interesting to tell us about the world that, like, what is this world right now? Like, what is crypto archaeology? What does this world look like? You go into detail about the different types of transportations and everything. So let's just set the scene of the book. Yeah.
Sure, no problem. The world is set. Think of Cyberpunk 2077. So that type of future.
Okay.
You've got hover cars, hover bikes, all types of crazy transport. People have cybernetic, augments. Something as simple as a chip somewhere in their body. Others, a whole prosthetic arm, or a leg, of that source. Some of the crucibles actually have full body power armor. Once again, harking back to the Iron Man type thing.
Mhm.
Right.
The definition of a cryptoarchaeologist is a researcher who investigates hidden, suppressed, or encrypted layers of history, not just what happened, but what was intentionally buried, misrecorded, or disguised.
Mm.
Okay.
That's what they are in the book. So it's kind of like Indiana Jones 2.0 with a little bit of tech to it. And that brings us to Ashay. That's what Ashay actually is. So he's got personal reasons for why that's the profession he chose. There's questions he's trying to get answered.
Right.
And he's brilliant in his field, but kind of like Einstein, when he came out with the theory of relativity, he was laughed at, ostracized. Until later on, it was proven, oh, he's right.
Right.
Very similar. Ash becomes a important part of the B.E.A.R.S program through his
Yeah.
own journey and whatnot. Um, Townsend and Ash, or really Shay, I should say, um, it's kind of a contentious relationship. I'll put it to you that way. Once again, because of things that was done in these characters' past. But it makes for a real juicy relationship.
Yeah.
But it kind of reminds me. You mentioned Einstein, but yet here again you have this weapon that they're developing. It's like the technology that could be used holistically and to better society gets turned into a weapon. It's like the Manhattan Project. It's like all my research is going to be shoved into this weapon because, like we say, like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, the only reason why we do anything in science is for military or financial reasons. And if there's no financial reason to do it, like free energy or whatever, then the military is going to use it, and let's blow up a couple of cities. So let's develop these super soldiers as opposed to
Or using that tech. Yeah. Right.
yeah, using that technology to create super soldiers as opposed to something else. So his parallelism to Einstein continues to develop. He's
Right. Yeah.
kind of like Einstein and Oppenheimer combined.
Right. And
Yeah.
so and it's
Yeah, that's like perfect. Perfect. You God, the stuff this man goes through, it's truly a coming of age. Truly is. It's like you've lived your whole life, to get these question answers. But what happens when the answers present themselves to you? How do you deal with it?
You're right.
Right. Yeah. And so in this first chapter, there is a lot. I mean, it's a lot going on in the first chapter.
It is a whirlwind.
Yeah.
You hang on to your seat in that one. I'm telling you.
One of the parts that I think that, and we're going to just talk about the first chapter, we won't reveal everything, but something that really is institutional to the world is the idea that everything's become digitized. And as you said with the crypto archaeologist, right, it's discovering things that were purposely suppressed. And so by nature, the opening scene is him inside of what would be like a digitized library of sorts, or actually in the physical library, going and looking at texts that have been digitized because the feeling is, or he has a feeling that things aren't.
But they also certain texts can't be digitized,
right,
as well.
Right, like he becomes a little frustrated because he's starting to realize that just because a book's been digitized does not mean it's word for word what was in
Mhm.
that book. It could be
Right.
altered, it could be changed to suit a certain narrative. So in that first chapter, he's in the deep stacks looking at actual books, going through
Right.
page by page and trying to find the truth.
Well,
Yeah.
it's also kind of interesting because if you're talking about suppressed secret messages that might not translate into that digitized version, you're talking maybe there's a certain there's a certain texture to certain letters that will reveal a certain, it's like a cipher that could be revealed, and that can only be found if you're feeling the text, if you're looking
Mhm.
at the text. But also what you're saying, and this is something that's in the book, and it's part of why Ashe is so um, frustrated, is your definition of a cryptoarchaeologist. It almost, whatever the institution, the governing body of, it's almost as if they're suppressing the very thing that they're supposed to be doing, and that's
Mm.
really, and but your definition is very was very anti what was happening in the book, and now that definition is making me think, oh, okay, now like it. And and I know this isn't where the book goes, but that's a whole story in itself. Like, how did it's like we're I don't know if you're watching, and not to get too political, but some of these Senate hearings, it's just ridiculous the word salads that they're pushing out, and it's like, no, that's not
Mhm.
what we're asking. This is what you're saying. This, oh, I don't care what you have to say on this. It's like,
Sure.
this is how these things. It's just like once the institution becomes corrupted, it doesn't matter what the truth is. It doesn't matter what the goal of these people are. It could slowly erode to the point where it's just a smooth surface and there's nothing to see here. So
Yeah.
what you're so yeah, so that definition really, like, and I was really hoping to get it, and it was really insightful into, especially from that first chapter, what is actually going on, and it harkens back to what he's so frustrated about.
Right.
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
importance of him in the world.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
right, exactly, and that's that emotional core we get from him and why he has to pursue, and the story that he goes down.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, it's yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's with Ashay's story and what's going on. There's also this connection to the past, right? And so we were talking about the high guard and drones and this past that's been lost, right?
Mhm.
We have recordings of it and stuff, and that's why I love it. You know, we if you've listened to anything, or you know Nick Jones now because you were on his team,
Mhm.
that's his whole folklore-esque integrations into story worlds.
Mhm.
We have a great episode on it if anybody wants. He's
And
written a book on
he
it.
also has a really great book on it that is really useful and helpful
Yeah,
in
right,
how
right.
you can layer.
The
um,
player in the pentacle.
Right, and you can layer this world so that it feels organic and made.
Right.
Because one of the things is like, this is what happens in societies. You get telephone.
Right.
One thing could, it's like we all like and not to divert too much, but one of the things is like the folklore of Bloody Mary. It's like sometimes it's like if you say it 3 times in a mirror, she appears. If every a lot of cultures have different versions of how this thing appears, and that's what a cryptoarchaeologist would try to find the truth behind it.
Mhm.
Where was that
Mhm.
original? What was distorted? Why were certain things said?
And
So
so yeah, so when you talk about the Atlanteans, right, we look back at our own folkloric and the lost continent of Mu, and like this like weird island that is drawn sometimes in the middle of the
yeah,
Mediterranean, that's not there anymore. And so all of this stuff kind of feeds into it. And so Ashay is unique because he has this connection. He's been having these reoccurring dreams for his whole life,
yeah,
right? And it's depicting, to him, it's depicting a lot of interesting things. And in that first chapter, it reveals itself to be what actually the reoccurring dream is actually trying to tell him,
yeah,
and kind of sets off this whole dominoes effect. But what he's understanding prior to that is that he's seeing, the ancient Aztecians walking around
yeah.
and doing things that we know from that standpoint historically. But
Mhm.
then he ends up finding out that it's not. But it's that very strong connection
Mhm.
to the past, which is really interesting and kind of feeds into this idea or the concept that you have where the high guards were the ones that pulled humanity out of the caves. And so
Yes.
there's pieces of us still within them, or pieces of them in us.
Right.
Yeah, and the funny thing about it, it makes you think about people that are elite athletes, people that win Nobel Peace Prize. It makes you wonder, if there's a little bit more appealing in
Sure.
them than the others.
Right.
Kids that are born, with an IQ of 130,
Mm-hmm.
that can
Yeah.
talk in like, 7 or 8 months of age. They're outliers, but they're there. And I take a lot of that real world knowledge and I put it into the book because in my opinion, the best thing that really pulls people into sci-fi is when you can find ways to ground it in our reality
Yeah.
because we can all relate to it.
Yeah, and,
Um,
and nothing's more difficult than having to come up with a whole new folkloric structure,
Yeah.
period. And so
Yeah.
using what you
Yeah.
have in
And so,
your world
and I don't
is,
know if you've, because, so this is interesting because this could add another wrinkle into it. And I don't know if you know, like when we first discovered that there are Neanderthals, we had called them, stupid, a thing. But then, and this is an institutional thing, once we found out that Europeans had certain amount of genetic DNA to Neanderthals, then all of a sudden it's like, look at how brilliant they were. They're so creative, and you could kind of use that kind of like at one point, there's a certain like, oh, the humans that have this were considered less than because you could say the Attilians this was a brutal people that were larger and stupider than humans, and then all of a sudden you discover that there's a little bit more DNA in some of the smarter people, and you're like, well, maybe not so. So you could kind of play with, you don't necessarily have to make it a race thing. It could be, which could be really kind of interesting, just to show how like our perceptions of something change based on which person gets it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that could be, just another added realism into like, and then also like how these institutions, no matter how, what's the word? How, like, these institutions, no matter how they try to portray themselves, like, it could be for the greater good, but they're also still bogged down with biases and that kind of thing.
Sure.
biases, their own internal plans.
Right, and
Yeah.
the narrative that they try to push, the narrative that they're trying to push, whatever they're
Right.
trying to wash away, and the narrative they're trying to push too. So it's like it goes hand in hand with the crypto archaeology.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's really interesting, and as you can't tell, Ashay definitely has a little bit of Atlantean Hyguard in
Yeah,
him.
right.
Maybe even a little bit more.
Yeah, right.
Maybe just a touch more than most people. That's all we'll say. Just a touch, right? And so this is his journey. This is what he is doing, and this is how this really integrates ultimately into what is a screenplay about the Bears. And about that whole development of this chip in the crystal is the work that Ashay does as a cryptoarchaeologist, and then the relationship between him and Dr. Townsend in developing what ultimately becomes this chip and stuff. So it's a really interesting, long way to say, right? And I think that was probably the best summation we've done on this podcast in only a half an hour.
Yeah, right.
Of what this world is and why you should explore it.
I'm gonna say, and this, I mean, this is I hope this comes off as a compliment. When he said Ashay has a little bit more Hyguardian in him, I mixed up. Ashay is not. You're not Ashay. You're not your character. You're Da Vinci. So I was like, yeah, of course Da Vinci has more Hyguardian in him. He's coming up with the story. But then I was like, no, wait, Ashay is. So I kind of. Okay, well. That's who I pictured when I was reading. I pictured you as Ashay, and I think that there's probably a more similarities with you two than anything else.
The Da Vinci that lived in Florence definitely has a little Attila in him.
Oh, yeah,
Not
right.
Attila in him, Atlantean in him. He might have had a little Attila in him, to be honest.
Ooh, hello.
They did not live at the same time, so that doesn't make any sense. Attila was like 900 AD, and we're talking 14,
yeah.
12,
Well,
12, 14
that's a
something.
different Bears. That's not
Yeah.
the same thing.
Ooh, yeah. Bears after dark.
There's a different Bears.
We're talking about two different bears.
Yeah,
my
we're
friend.
talking about different bears here.
But yeah,
Yeah, no, yeah,
the book is definitely sum it up. It's how the B.E.A.R.S program began.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
You know, so
And I think,
you
yeah.
get to see all the different machinations that put that machine together. And when you get to the actual screenplay, you get to see the bears fully in action.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
All that
yeah,
build
it's a
up.
great, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's gonna be a lot
And
of fun to know the
it's
origin
yeah,
of
right.
that
Yeah,
bears
right. It's
because
almost like, and then that's the other beauty of it is like if you watch the Bears movie, you don't need to know how they were created, but knowing that story, that background story, can
right,
give
Yeah,
context and so much more. It's such a wider world of like look at like this. Not only are these cool as a crate, it could be is a really cool series, a really cool movie. But now we understand. Like if you read the book, you understand what happened and how it got twisted and how it
right,
might have been corrupted and what exactly happened. Like I was about to say, it's like another bad thing about Ashay is like he is this um, he is very much like Einstein and Oppenheimer that developed this bomb, but they developed the nuclear bomb. But the only thing worse is that he ends up partnering with von Braun. You know, you know what I mean? So it's not only does
yeah,
it get
yeah,
used in a bad way, but it's like it's like he's at control. It's like the wrong side is getting the full control of it.
yeah,
it's definitely an interesting dynamic. He becomes faced with a interesting kind of like dilemma. Now that I have the keys to the kingdom, do I keep them to myself?
Mm-hmm.
mm,
Do I share them? You know, do I keep it hidden? You know, knowing, well, having a hint of what's coming. You know, so he really is forced to do a lot of internal thinking to figure out the right way. You know, because like you touched on before, you know, like we had the technology now to clean our waters, to make sure nobody goes hungry, to make
right,
sure everybody has housing. We had the technology and the means for it, but because of the powers that be,
Mm-hmm.
that stuff is starved.
Yeah.
right,
You know, so it's kind of like a little bit like using that analogy. It's perfect, you know, with what Ash goes through, you know,
yeah,
and what he's faced to deal with, you know, and what bargains he has to make.
right,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So the book, which is
The
no, it's the
the
first
first
time
High
out,
Yep.
Guardian.
right?
Hmm.
Will be coming out soon. It'll be, we'll definitely push that stuff out as it comes available. We'll let everybody know. Um, Now is a great time to kind of transition into some stuff. Da Vinci was kind enough to send us a bunch of stuff. You know, like they're
Yeah.
in the middle of trying to raise money to actually shoot the screenplay out in Turkey, which is a great location to spend my honeymoon there. There's plenty of like open spaces and ruins and stuff like that that I think would be pretty interesting. Um, and also that what the whole idea of Store World Explorers and what we love to do is talk about the stuff that we can do right now, right? Especially as we're trying to do these larger projects, right? And you have the capability of writing a book and then editing that book and then even self-publishing it or going out and trying to find somebody to publish it. But one of the things that we know and everybody on this podcast knows is that we need to do everything that we can to build an audience right now because part of the reason why somebody might be interested in investing is a proven commodity, right?
Yeah.
Is showing people that are nuts about the Bears,
Yeah.
like, people are
Because,
just can't get enough and really want to learn more.
if you're gonna invest 45 million to $100 million in a movie, you got to make sure people are showing up for it. And
Right.
what better than to have a passionate audience that is 5,000 strong, and
Right.
you only have a couple of things that very
Right.
low investment,
fidelity, right?
low
Hmm.
fidelity stuff that you've produced.
And so we've shown throughout the video podcast you're watching on YouTube, especially when Da Vinci was talking about the characters, we have two character designs that we were able to put up on the screen so you can see.
Yeah.
Da Vinci is an excellent illustrator. And so when we think about how and what kind of content we can make now, of course, we're going to try to match it to what the competencies,
talents of the
right,
the talents of the artist.
Of the artist. And so
And the
some of the
creator.
things that we were talking about, right, and we have a Shay, and a Shay is a very complex character. And this relationship with Dr. Townsend is something that's really interesting as well. And as you can hear,
Multi-layered.
Yeah, very multi-layered.
Multi-layered. They are connected in a lot of ways.
In a lot of different ways, yeah.
A lot of ways. A lot of ways they are connected. It is no coincidence that they find themselves in this contemptuous relationship.
Right. And then also we're talking about the world itself, right?
Yeah.
And so we have so many interesting kind of elements of exploration that can happen if we wanted to go backwards in time again, right, past even where Ashay is.
Right. And one of the things, so like, we were talking, and I'm like nerding out about cryptoarchaeology on this podcast. I always come back to it. I think it's such an interesting part of this world. And now after you gave me the definition, my mind is just racing with like, who gave the directive to start to like erode the integrity of this field of study? Like, what purpose is it getting suppressed? Like, is it specifically to do with Townsend and the research that he's trying to do to develop these augmented soldiers? Is there another reason? Is it a way of controlling to try to disassociate and like say, no, we were never connected to the Atlanteans. There's never a Hyguardian. No, so just to kind of throw people off the scent so that they can find this crystal that they need. I think that could be. I mean, it's just so interesting
like
to me.
kind of like a mystery type thing. Ooh, even from an investigative journalist perspective.
We love our investigative journalists.
It's really easy to do it on a weekly basis. That's
we love our investigative journalists
because there's always clues and stuff in some new story that could be.
And then also because, and this is what it should be, what news should be, what journalism should be should be trying to uncover corruption and the truth. And I think if you have, and the thing is that you can threaten a journalist all you want. You know what I mean? If they don't hold guns, they don't have a badge, they don't have jurisdiction. They're going into places very dangerous. And I think that could be just to try to figure that out, because it doesn't matter in the book why it's happening, but it'd be interesting to know why it's happening. You know what I mean? So it doesn't influence, but it's just a fact of life, a fact of this. So I'm thinking something.
In the second act of the book, there actually is another organization. They're a hidden one. They have a lot to do with what's going on in the world. They work from the shadows, though. In the essence of Transmedia, you do see them in the book. In the actual films, though, in the second script, you get to see them. So they come out from the darkness into the light. And definitely in the third script, they really come out. But they are trying to protect mankind from itself. So there's certain things that are mysteriously vanished. Not trying to spoil anything, but once again, I play around with stuff that goes on in our current existence, our current myths and legends.
Right.
They kind of curate certain important pieces that lead back to Atlantis, that lead back to the Italians, and all that. So what you were saying, Jack, is definitely happening in the book and throughout the series.
Okay.
So it would be really interesting to kind of tease that out a little bit, because the third screenplay is going to be forever,
right? And that's the thing too. It's a cool, because you don't want to ruin the reveal there, but this character, this investigative journalist, for whatever reason, because you're such a good illustrator, I'm thinking a noir, like comic book. But at the end of this comic books, these strips, he could get killed. He could get some, he could get silenced in some way,
Sure.
so that it still keeps that mystery. It's like, wait,
Right.
but he was on to something. He must have been on to something. People killed him. Why did
Right.
they? Things like that. And like you
That would
said,
be a pretty cool end to the to the piece of content too.
Yeah.
And what we're suggesting too, which I don't know if we illustrated, is kind of like either a weekly or a monthly or something that's reasonable to be able to do.
Yeah.
That kind of could be published on. And the example I gave was this gentleman, L.E. Mullins on Substack, who I can't remember if it's Hawkman. You took a look at it?
Yeah, I did.
But yeah, it's so brilliant because he's been able to develop an audience that's following this character. And from what I can tell, like the story, there isn't like a through line story, but they're also just kind of odd adventures of this character, right? And he writes a little post with each one of the strips that he puts out of like what the thought process was and all that stuff. It's very cool, and it's a very good way of audience building for something that if you wanted to do, if he ended up wanting to do like an animation or something like that of that character, he has like, hey, they want to see more of this character. So something of that nature that you could start to do just now in your downtime. I mean, we know that you were able to write or make all the God drawings and stuff that was in the presentation was Da Vinci's work. So outside of your pencil getting tired, right, there's an opportunity there to start to feel it out and explore the world, right?
Yeah.
We know it's nothing's worse than having these great ideas that you can't do right now, and then you're kind of stuck with not being able to do it. And this gives the opportunity creatively as an outlet to continue.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like one of the things that Jack mentioned last time we talked was, even now about the whole crypto archaeologist thing. So that gave me an idea to start talking about maybe Shay's life.
Yeah.
Going from like maybe when he is in college, and having these dreams and doing the searching and hitting the walls and stumbling blocks and all that, kind of doing, maybe weekly posts, about that, which will make the audience become more familiar with Shay, and kind of cheer for them.
Yeah, right. It could be a notes, like a Shay's like college notes. It could be like a journal, like this entry. This is where I went. So like you can see that there's so much like not passion, but there's so much happening in his head, and we're getting an insight into that, so that when that book does hit, we're like, oh, I'm so in this Shay's guy.
It's almost like you would take the classes with him, like
you
could have
and then you could start to really develop the methodology of cryptoarchaeology. Why is it important? And like I said, like I've been totally nerding out about it. It's like, I don't know. I think I might have said it like 100 times already in this hour podcast. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if this is a thing that happens in a lot of sci-fi. I don't know if this cryptoarchaeology happens in a lot of sci-fi. Partially because it's like sci-fi, you're like future, but you're like sci-fi past.
Right.
It's kind of like the whole
looking to the past,
for the future. It's kind of like the throwaway line in Star Wars, in a galaxy far, long ago, in a galaxy far, far away. It's like, wait, this is in the past, but they have better technology than us. That kind of thing. But now you're saying that no, our specific past is the key to our future, and crypto art, like, because a lot of it's like if you don't know history, you're deemed to repeat it. This is doomed. I guess both work, but I guess doomed is
doomed gives it a little bit more gravity to the
doomed
saying,
is what it's supposed to say.
Yeah.
Doomed is the same. But again, so I think that's a really cool way to utilize that whole, like, no, history is very important. What was being uncovered, what the forced narrative that we're seeing, because
you could end up actually creating a college course based on cryptoarchaeology, which would be pretty cool as a in real life eventuality of the B.E.A.R.S story world. It's like at Northwestern. Oh yeah, you can take a cryptoarchaeology thing. It's
from the universe of the B.E.A.R.S.
From the universe of the and that being in the Northwestern being in the Chicagoland area is going to really get confusing.
Then you need to hire the actor of of a Shay to be the be the professor.
Oh, to be the professor, he's getting paid to teach a class, but in so doing, he ends up getting an honorary doctoral from Northwestern, and it gets really confusing real
Yeah,
fast.
right.
It's like, does he know what he's talking about, or is he just reading a script that Da Vinci wrote? We're not
Yeah.
entirely sure. But no, but very honestly,
Yeah.
it sounds like a career path that might you could end up seeing that in the very far
Yeah,
future.
very far future, but
Being coined because it was coined here, because it is something that we could see being needed in the future.
The
Look
arts,
at look at how many professions they created in the Star Trek universe that are actual jobs now.
Right.
Well, the arts paved the path to all revolution, and so this, it's without Jules Verne, we might not have the scuba suit.
Right.
Without Da Vinci Young, we might not have cryptoarchaeology.
Right. Without Da Vinci, we might not even have tried to fly.
Yeah.
Right. So, like,
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of stuff, and we're joking around, but it's a very real possibility, and especially if you want to put in time into creating what a Shay is dealing with. Another possibility too that we talked about is a Shay's parents are extremely foundational to his story. And so when Jack initially said, in his college days, is that you could see interactions between a Shay and his mother, which there's a very important key to the story there.
Yes.
And kind of tease out some of those things as well. But even just showing day-to-day life in
well, the thing is,
2089 or whatever.
Right, he's having these dreams, and this is again going back to the diary journal thing. He's having these dreams, and he's drawing the dreams, and that kind of ties in your ability to draw these things. Because, like I was saying, when we first saw the cover art for the book, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And it's like, I didn't quite understand how they looked, but now I get a really good idea of how they looked. And then you could start to, in that opening chapter, you get a lot of different scenes, and you could start kind of muddling them together. So you can kind of make it, so like the things he adds in are like from his conscious knowledge of like, oh, this is Aztec, so I'm going to make this look more Aztecian. Or, it's almost like he's filtering it through. He's pushing the same narrative that he's, cryptoarchaeology is trying to disassociate from. So again, and that could be, again, this is like one of the things that we try to do is to try to make something that you could do, on your off time, publish it, start to tickle. Start to tickle things. We're talking about the.
Are
other
we
bears
talking
again.
about Attila being in a little Attila being in? Start tickling people and stuff. What are we doing?
Yeah, I'm definitely
titillizing.
I believe
trickle, and titillizing the palate of your audience by slowly building this thing up. And I think that I might be hyper focusing on the.
No, I think it's a good thing to.
that's
that's
fine.
kind of the idea.
But
there is.
But there's a million different ways to go about it.
Yeah. I've always been a big lore hound. If there is an IP that I'm really loving, I actually actively look for anything else attached to that universe to consume.
Yeah.
Because it just broadens the world in my mind and appreciate everything. Which is why with B.E.A.R.S, the universe, it's hitting pretty much every platform. We've got the novel. That's one platform. We have the thesaurus I'm gonna come out with, which it's going to teach people how to actually speak Attilan. Which is like sidebar. I noticed with Star Trek again, Klingons.
Yeah.
As massive a fan base they still have to this day. Why didn't Gene Roddenberry think about coming out with his own book, How to Speak Klingon? The fans did that by constantly watching the show and piecing together Kaplock. What does that mean? And all that stuff. And he did, but that was an opportunity for further world building he could have easily jumped into. Come up with an actual book that looks like a Klingon tome. How that book would have sold out.
Absolutely.
Easily.
Well, it's just like Jeff Gomez posted an article out about how much money Netflix lost on the Queen's Gambit by not having a Queen's Gambit branded chessboard.
Because chess grew, like
Yeah,
it
right.
skyrocketed.
And this was during the pandemic. Everybody was buying chessboards, and Netflix just did not have any way to capture that need because everyone would want this one that she was playing on. You know, that would be the one you wanted to learn on. Would be the one that because everyone thought after watching that they were a chess genius.
Right.
That was a missed opportunity. They should have thought more about with the world building. You know, like like I said, I had the novel, which is soon to be done. The thesaurus. You got the first live action film. The second script is an animated CGI film, which tells the story of the villain. Correct. So you get to see all the machinations that put him where he's at in the book and in the first movie. You know, then after that, the next two scripts are set to be seasons, season 1 and season 2. And you really get to see the B.E.A.R.S team dive into who they are and the whole 9 yards with these, new abilities. And then the script after that is talking about a particular person that is briefly mentioned in the book, but she has a lot of weight. A lot. And that's going to be animated again, but Japanese animation. And then I have ideas and thoughts about a video game. And how that's going to be structured. So trying to hit so many different avenues and not telling the same story again, but continuing the story.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of great stuff that's going to come out of this world, and we're excited to hear about it and to continue engaging with you, man. So, I appreciate you jumping on with us.
The hour just flew on by. Right?
Yeah, no, it was a great conversation. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Whoa, that was such a cool episode. Yeah. I, for one, can't wait to take the first college course in crypto archaeology.
Yeah, right, at Northwestern University. It was really great to have Davence on. Love the fact that he had participated in Store World in 8 days. If you are interested in becoming a Store World Explorer podcast guest, there's a link on our website where you can go and enter in your own world.
And if you just love more Store Worlds, we have a catalog full of great Store Worlds and more information about Transmedia to help you develop your own.
Right. So thanks for watching and enjoy your next adventure.